Hello everyone, this is Remleiz from 40k Theories, and welcome to this newest episode of Adeptus Podcastus. Joining me as always is Tactica Imperialis.
Hello everyone.
No guest this week because, well, we're saving it all for the next episode, because next episode is episode 100, aka the Ian Watson Appreciation Special.
Yeah, we decided for this one to be a bit more of a quiet, sleepier episode, but we had to draw a line under a few plans. But here we are. It is the calm before the storm, as it were. And luckily, even though it is the calm before the storm, there's a lot going on in the world of Warhammer for us to talk about.
Indeed. So let's jump into the big thing that's been recently revealed. The 9th edition starter box set Indomitus.
Caveat, not a starter box.
Is this not a starter box?
No. I know I said James Workshop there. Games Workshop were very clear about this in the reveal stream. This is not a starter box. This is a launch box. Now, you might be asking, what's the difference? The difference is Indomitus is not going to last all of 9th edition. It's going to be available for a limited time, and it is not going to contain dice, the red sticks, if they still were a thing, or anything other than models, the little campaign starter book, and the rule book. There is nothing else in that box.
I'll admit, okay, fine. I thought, I'm just used to, here's a big box set, here's a bunch of models, therefore starter box.
Oh yeah, I think to be fair, it was about halfway through the stream they actually clarified it.
Right.
Because it is a much bigger box than Dark Imperium, Dark Vengeance, Black Reach, and the like. It is a lot denser in terms of models, and I would not be surprised if the contents of this box did become the editions box set, just with a few bits missing, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, how many models are in this box set?
So, to do a quick rundown, I'm sure most of you know this, but we'll go through it in full. You get 20 Necron Warriors, 3 Scorpek Destroyers and a Plasma Sight, a Scorpek Lord, an Overlord, a Plasmancer and 2 Thralls, a Royal Warden. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Scarab bases, and that's just the Necrons. For the Space Marines, you get 10 Assault Intercessors, 3 Eradicators, 3 Blade Guard Veterans, a Blade Guard Ancient, a Lieutenant, a Blade Guard Ancient Blade Guard Veterans and a Blade Guard Ancient. You also get a Captain, a Chaplain, and the Judicia.
So how many models is that in total?
Alright, 20, 21, 24, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 37 on the Necron side, and then 10, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 23. So 60 miniatures.
So, if I recall correctly, I think that's actually less than the 2nd edition starter box.
Possibly 61, because you've also got the Counter-Tech Reanimator. My apologies. But if you compare it to... Black Reach was my first box set back in 5th edition, where you got 20 boys, 3 Deathcopters, 5 Knobs, and a War Boss. So you got 29 miniatures on the Horde side. And on the Space Marine side, you got a Tactical Squad, a Terminator Squad, a Captain, and a Dreadnought. So it was 17. So it's actually not that much bigger than Black Reach. However, bear in mind, these are Primaris Marines and Necrons, not Firstborn Marines and Orcs. The main change, I think, really is in the amount of heroes.
I don't think these are going to be really monopose either.
I believe they did show all the frames in full, and these are the push fit I don't believe... Or are they? They might be monopose, these versions. I'm not sure. Certainly the characters will be, because they're character models in the modern era. The Assault Intercessors probably won't be, and the Warriors probably won't be. But beyond that, I wouldn't want to say with any degree of certainty, because I can't recall the sprues off the top of my head, and I'm sure the comments have already gone and yelled at me for getting it wrong. But there's a lot of actually very new designs in here. So first off was the Primaris Captain, i.e. he's got a relic shield, which is a storm shield with a skeleton in it. And it's the first time I've ever seen a miniature with their helm half up, and it comes with 3 head options, so you don't have to do that.
Can I just point out, the way he's holding his shield, it looks like he's less wielding it in battle and just going, look at my shield, it has a skeleton on it. Look at it.
Yes, he's certainly not in fighting pose at the moment. He's in show-off pose.
Yeah.
I actually think that this miniature might actually be a bit too much. Like the Primaris Lieutenant with the Volkite, Neo Volkite pistol, I think is a fantastic design because it's clearly a hero character, but it's not too much. I feel like the captain is too much. Like, there's too much going on.
At the same time, though, it's a captain. They're allowed to be a little more ostentatious.
Oh, I don't disagree. If compared to the lieutenant, the lieutenant's about right for me, but that just might be my personal preference. But they did say that this is a new style of Mark 10 armor. I think this is Mark 10 Crusader armor, so it's a slight change because obviously they've got these tabards now. So they might be on a slightly different Mark 10 armor with these variants because I think those hip plates are new.
Okay.
I have to look back through. I look at the Assault Intercessors now, who are in the classic armor, and they certainly. They do have them. Sorry, I might be talking utter rubbish, but I swear I heard Jez Goodwin mention the word Mark 10 Crusader armor during the Jez Goodwin interview, but I could be wrong. The Chaplain has got a new style crozier. So remember last episode, we were talking about that artwork and it looked like there was a guy who looked like a chaplain, but the crozier was all wrong.
Yeah.
Well, this is now the new look crozier, it seems.
I'll tell you what he reminds me of. Do you remember, well, you probably don't remember, but there was a second edition Chaplain, one of the metal ones, who looks pretty much just like that. It's almost identical pose. I think it's like a nice little homage to that, even as the facial bionics as well.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Chaplain Cassius miniature from Deathwatch Overkill, but that's because it's the only sort of Chaplain miniature I really kind of remember. So I'm completely wrong, and you're probably very right. But yeah, it's a good design. It's very simple and very effective. You've seen the Judicia before, Captain Squaresword, and the Hourglass is actually not for show. It's actually a gameplay ability, the Tempor Mortis.
So is it going to be like, if I don't kill these people in this amount of time, I get these bonuses or something like that?
It's probably a way of making the enemy strike last, is probably how I think it will work. Or making himself strike first.
Either that or you just stole them from the Prince of Persia. I wonder if anyone's actually going to get that reference.
There was I think I get the reference. The Blade Guard Vets, we'd seen them before. They did some alternate colour schemes this week, and they look brilliant in Deathwing colours.
And can I just point out how sassy Games Workshop were when revealing the Iron Hands version, saying like, Ferrus Manus could have used these at Istvan.
Thanks, G-Dubs. Thanks. Ouch.
It's like, Iron Hand players are going to be salty, but then again, no one plays Iron Hands anymore ever since they got nerfed, so never mind.
And speaking of hands, the Blade Guard Ancient looks like I have so many jokes going around that he's carrying Rogel Dawn around because he's got a spare hand in his hand.
He's going to slap you with it.
A lot of people were drawing comparisons to the AOS Lord Relictor, and I do see it with the banner design being metallic with like a skeletal structure in the middle. It's not the same, but I can see the inspirations from the Lord Relictor in this miniature. Sort of how I can see Stormcast in the Judicia as well, which is just interesting to me. Eradicators are essentially fire dragons, but space marines, because they wear Gravis armor, so they've got better armor than other space marines, and they walk around with melter weapons that apparently have an 18-inch range, because apparently no one can have nice things. Like, that just dunks on Tau, if true, and dunks on Eldar, if true. It's like, just, no.
Let's be honest, it's not the only thing that's dunking on Tau, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, we'll get to that later. Yes, so the melter rifles are new. I had someone describe them as, what was the game that people made reference to with them design, particularly with that second chamber up at the top? People just like, it looks like a bolter, but with a melter gun strapped to it, rather than actually being like a melter gun. And kind of the second little fuel cell at the top reminded them of, I don't know if it was Halo weapons or something. I can't say for certain, I forget.
It probably was, I don't know.
Yeah, there's the Assault Intercessors who look exactly like you'd expect them to. And then the Outriders, who I still don't like because I don't like Space Marine bikers, but that's just me being uncultured.
Not even on their cool-looking Akira bikes.
I'm just uncultured, okay? The square bikes don't do it for me.
Have you seen Akira, by the way?
No.
Okay, that's your first mistake. Once you finish recording this, I want you to go and watch it. Okay, that's your homework for this weekend. You got to go and watch Akira. Okay.
I'm on house viewings all weekend. I've got far more important.
You can watch it on the train on your phone or something.
Sure. Anyway, moving on then to the Necrons. We get a new Overlord who looks majestic with their hyperphase glaive and a tachyon arrow. Welcome back, the tachyon arrow. One of my favourite bits of war gear from 5th edition, because it was basically a las cannon on your wrist, but better. It was more like there was no strength 10 AP1 weapon that didn't have a blast weapon back in the day. But yeah, it was a super las cannon on your wrist, and now we get to see what it looks like, and it's very, very cool. Then we get the Royal Warden, which I actually think is my favourite miniature in the entire box. It's the Necron's equivalent to the Primaris Lieutenant. It's a lord of some sort, I'm assuming, armed with a Relic Gauss blaster. Honestly, I think this is my favourite miniature in the entire box.
It is nice in fairness, yeah.
You get the Plasmancer, so if you kept hold of your old Necron Wraiths from 3rd edition, be happy, you have something you can convert them into now. You get the Plasmancer, which is a type of Cryptek that's always existed. Just this is the first time we've seen them separated like this, rather than just being called Cryptek. And they're guarded by their Crypto Thralls, which are like Arco-Flagellants, but Necrons. At least in my personal opinion, they look like Argo-Flagellants, but Necrons.
I thought they were just skinless flayers. Visually, they look like skinless flayers.
I get that. Obviously, the flayers have claws and things like that, but I do see exactly where you're coming from, though, actually. And I bet, actually, if you get, different pelts and stuff from various AOS kits, you could probably actually create, a Flayed One Lord or something like that.
Yeah.
They'd be a bit small for, an Overlord, but for a Necron Lord level character might be fun. We get the Scorpek Lord, who we'd seen before, armed with an Enmitic Annihilator, a Devastating Hyperphase Harvester, or a Flensing Claw. Good grief, do you want to just give it all of the things? But it's very impressive, and I do like the fact that they've dug the legs into the base so that it's not balanced on 3 tiny points.
Yeah.
You've then got the Scorpek Destroyers, who are armed either with two-handed hyperphase weapons, the hyperphase Reap Blade, I should call it, or you can have the hyperphase Threshers, or you can have dual discs. Quite. So look forward to...
Oh, that's who Kit's going to be going against next. Oh, shit.
So... Yeah, look forward to someone animating if our old animator ever hears this episode, then I hope we get to see Wraithguard versus Scorpek dueling anime. That could be fun. Just me. And they're followed around by the Plasma Sight, which is basically, buff Scorpeks whenever you need to with this little ammo runt type thing. And then you get Baby War of the Worlds, the Canoptek Reanimator, which basically buffs... It's not actually a resurrection unit, it actually buffs reanimation protocols for a unit. You add one to the reanimation rolls, which is a lot.
Yep.
And then you've got one-piece Scarab Swarm, so hopefully they'll be a bit easier for new players to build. And, of course, the new Necron Warriors armed with their Gauss Flayers or Gauss Reapers, which are, I think, 18-inch Assault 2 type weapons, good for shredding infantry. And obviously, the core book is in there as well. I think it's unique to the box with this Guilliman Abaddon cover art that we've seen before. And then finally, a little campaign book, because that's always there. An assembly guide, transfer sheets. And we're done.
Is it just me, but on the cover for the campaign book, the Necron Lord looks like he's laughing. Like he's having
a very derpy face.
He's having a great old time. It's like, yeah, this is great. It's like, I will kill you, Fauci. And it's like, no, this is great fun, mate.
Yeah, it is a very derpy face that they've given the Lord in the Overlord.
Necrons.
But that actually wasn't all. At the end of the stream, GW actually managed to do something they haven't done throughout the entire online era and drop a bombshell. managed to show us something that no one had leaked, or if they had leaked it, I hadn't seen it, which was a first, because the Lion got leaked, the Battle Cattle got leaked, flipping Fabius got leaked, everything got leaked from all the previous previews. And this one, they didn't actually, and they dropped 4 brand new units on us. Some we'd seen from some info dumps before, and some that were brand new.
Yes, one of them being the quote-unquote Thickron, aka the Necron Heavy Destroyer.
Yes, the Locust Heavy Destroyer, which actually comes from a very old sketch, I believe, and is armed with 3 arms and 2 weapons, Gauss Destructors and Enmitic Exterminators. Good grief.
Yes, he's a big chonky boy.
Very. Though it is dwarfed by War of the Worlds, the Canoptic Doomstalker, which is a Doomsday Arc on spindle legs, because, well, it's not a Doomsday Arc, it's a slightly different gun, it's the Doomsday Blaster rather than the Doomsday Cannon, but same point.
Yeah, it reminds me of those things from StarCraft 2, actually.
Fair enough.
The ones that the Protoss use, I forgot what they were bloody called.
I've never got... I got into RTSs around the time Dawn of War came out and then got immediately out of them because my PC stopped being good enough to game on. So I don't know StarCraft all that well, to be honest.
Oh, and they also leaked the go-kart.
Yes, the Invader ATV, which has drawn a mixed response, shall we say. A mixed response.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying, like, oh, the driver's going to be deaf as soon as the gunner shoots the gun, but remember, helmet, noise dampener, he'll be fine. Yes,
also, Space Marines don't play by the rules. I've seen people, do different models of this, of, moving it to have two little guns that are automated as opposed to a gunner on the back. It's obviously the Primaris equivalent to the attack bike, and it's a cool idea. And I personally don't have a particular problem with its design, aside from, can you give it a front armor plate, please? Because otherwise the suspension's going to get covered in dirt every time you go over something, and that might not be fun for your engine.
I saw a great meme someone made, taking the Invader buggy, but it's it's a transformer, so it transforms into the Invictus warsuit.
Yes, and there were obviously all the Mario Kart memes that went around, of course.
Of course.
And then there was the Fire Strike servo turret, a weapon that I personally didn't agree with when I first saw it. Not because it's a bad design at all, it's a nice design, but I always had this image in my head, particularly from 5th edition Space Marines, of them being this rapid assault, sudden strike force type army that didn't really do defenses and fortifications in terms of their own army. They would take over fortifications, but it wasn't their thing, which is why they had mobile artillery rather than actual artillery and turrets.
Yeah, I was expecting this to be something more akin to, what's it called? The Tarantula. From Horus Heresy.
Oh, yeah, I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah, so it seems a bit weird to have, what looks like a static emplacement, even though some people have points that it may not actually be static.
Yeah, and there was actually an old hammer miniature of a Space Marine turret, so it's not actually completely unheard of. It's just not been a thing for Space Marines for a while. Mm. Also, is this the first Primaris Tech Marine we've ever seen?
No, there's one in the Repulsor.
Yes.
In the turret.
You are right. Well, we assume it's a Tech Marine anyway. They're just missing the servo harness.
Well, he's got the red arm and he's got an Ultramarine symbol on it, so...
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't forget, before him, you had the Iron Hand character, the Primaris Iron Father.
Oh, goodness, yes, you're right.
They're still technically Tech Marines, so...
You are right indeed. So yes, a lot of brand new miniatures. Well, actually, a lot of them we'd seen before, but there were some brand new miniatures seen there. The Overlord, the Warden, the Invader ATV, some really nice stuff. Obviously, we don't know the price yet, but there was a tweet from Games Workshop on Warhammer Community that said that Indomitus would be out in July. They did not confirm when in July, but it seems as though our suggestion on the last podcast that they were going to hold back 9th edition until September has been thrown in the bin and they're rushing it for July.
Not the first time we got things wrong on this show.
Oh, we get so much wrong on this show. Especially when we predict something the day before and then like we talked about this. Oh, what do we think are we gonna like pay Psychic Awakening out and then drop 9th in like September? And then the very next day they said War of the Spiders on pre-order this week, guys.
Yeah.
Fine. So yes, War of the Spider is now out, I believe, or it is.
Before we jump into that, still sticking with Indomitus briefly, they also announced the Indomitus novel.
Oh yes, they did.
Which is going to have 2 special editions. One in, which I'll be honest, they both look absolutely horrible. One of them is, is entirely blue with an ultramarine flipping you off, and the other one is a Necron that's covered in like a key lime pie. It's like
and you bash on that Horus Rising book for looking like a textbook.
Yeah, because it does.
Fine, but I mean, to be fair, the standard cover looks very nice.
The standard cover looks very nice. Yeah, the standard artwork looks great, but the limited edition artwork is just bad on both. And the fact that you got 2 limited editions, which to my knowledge are exactly the same as each other, like it seems a bit much.
I think it's probably a way to maximize sales, because limited edition novels, obviously if Siege of Terror has been anything to go by, go like that. Whereas if you have Army limited special editions, they might hang around a little bit longer, or at least cause the main one to hang around. At
the same time, doesn't it kind of defeat the point of it being a limited edition?
Take your point.
And that being said, the Cal Jericho limited edition, that's been out for like over a bloody year and it's still available online.
True. Oh, also, all the kits, like the Cannot Take Doomstalker, the Heavy Destroyer, and the ATV, they're all push fit.
Oh.
Yeah, it says it right at the bottom, actually. Just underneath the bit about the novel, it says that they're all going to be available as push fit models.
Fair enough.
And that probably also applies to Indomitus because standard rules apply.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on Indomitus to say at this time? They did show off a few rules for a couple of units. So the Indomitus Bikers, the Outriders, have got 4 wounds of throw. And they did a bit about the Reanimator, which is why I know about its buffs to reanimation protocols. But that's about it, really, on that one. At least for me.
Fair enough. So we were talking about War of the Spider.
Yes, so this is now out. It came out on the Saturday between episodes. So you can get your hands on that if you're interested in going back to Warzone Cadia. I can be honest, I haven't seen any reviews of it yet, and my local GW hasn't actually got any orders in yet. They haven't actually had their first delivery since they reopened post-lockdown. So they haven't had their Aeronautica supplies or their War of the Spider supplies arrive yet. In fact, they actually told me they don't know how many Lumineth boxes they're even getting yet. So I think there's still, if you wanted to pick stuff up in store, you're still running a tightrope.
Yeah. The one thing that did get leaked prior to this actually being released is that the Brazen Drakes, that Primaris band that went traitor / renegade, whatever. They've actually become a full blown Black Legion warband.
So Chaos Primaris no. These guys they went renegade before the Primaris turned up. It's not Chaos Primaris confirmed.
I mean, if it's the Primaris ones who have joined this Black Legion warband.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering the story correctly, the Primaris ones were all killed because the Firstborn by the Custodes, because all the Firstborn ones had already gone.
Yes, I believe
so. I think the Primaris ones were all dead. So there will be no Chaos Primaris, but I'm willing to be corrected.
I mean, one might turn up in the book. We don't know yet. It's not out yet.
Exactly. Well, it is, but
not at time of recording.
Yeah, we haven't got it at the very least. Also, the Zote is actually finally coming out, and it's actually getting rules for. I think I saw it was getting rules for actual main 40k, though I'm going to double check that that's correct.
No, that's correct, and apparently any army can use it. Any army, apparently.
Yeah, so they have the unaligned keyword so that you can include them in any army. Strength 5, Defense 4, 6 wounds, 3 up save, 4 power cost. And the Atomic Disassembler is an 18-inch pistol, Strength 8, AP -3, D6 damage, ignores cover. And then in melee, it's got essentially Gazkul's Power Fist. Ghazghkull's old Power Fist, strength times 2, AP minus 3, damage 3, but minus 1 to hit. So, yeah, it's actually pretty punchy. Not that defensive, because it's a 6-wound Space Marine, so it's not ridiculously defensive. But if it has the character keyword, then for now, it'll be pretty hard to pick off.
Yeah. Speaking of picking off and rules and that, they released some upcoming rules for 9th edition, didn't they, as of late?
Yeah, they've been doing rules pretty much every other day, whilst they've been alternating with these faction focuses. And the first major change they made in the last week or so, let me just double check. They've revealed how blast weapons work. So if you've got if you've got a unit of 5, you can always score a minimum of 3 hits. If it's a unit of 10, you always score the maximum. Tanks getting to shoot in combat at their target, but I think they have to be minus 1 to hit with heavy weapons. Also, you get a boost to firing weapons on the move. I think there's a boost to firing weapons on the move somewhere in there as well. But the changes most recently was to Overwatch. So
yeah, a
Overwatch,
lot of people saw this and basically just said "rip Tau."
Well, you see, this is interesting. You see, Overwatch, for those who are a little newer to the game and have only ever known Overwatch, was introduced in 6th edition way back in 2012. And so it's been around for 8 years, so there's probably a lot of people listening to this who have never not known Overwatch, and it's barely changed in its time. When a unit gets charged, it rolls a standard shooting attack where it only ever hits on 6s, unless you were Flamers in the old edition or Blast Weapons in the old edition, because different rules applied.
Can I just point out that this rule also existed in 2nd?
Of course it did. But yes, it's been around for a while, and GW hasn't really changed it, but Overwatch became one of the most powerful mechanics that shooting armies had, and one of the many reasons that 6th edition was the gun-ho edition it was because of the introduction of Overwatch, the nerfing of tanks with hull points, and various other factors. And they never quite got Overwatch balanced and got range and melee balanced up. So what they've done is they've changed Overwatch from every unit can Overwatch to Overwatch is a stratagem, thus you can only use it once per phase. How it actually works is unchanged. You do a standard shooting attack, but you only hit on an unmodified 6. No modifiers come into play at all. It's a bit wordy, so I'll try and dumb it down a little bit. If an enemy unit declares a charge, each of the units targeted by the charge can fire before the charge roll is made. If there are units in melee with you already, you can't do that. And that's basically it. So that's now a stratagem, which means that only 1 unit per phase or 1 unit per turn is going to Overwatch. Unless you are Tau, because Tau have for the greater good, which means that when a unit is targeted with a charge and fires Overwatch, all units within 6 inches of it can also fire Overwatch, is how I think the rule works. I am willing to be corrected, comments, if you think I'm wrong, but I think the way for the greater good triggers is that if you pick a unit to fire Overwatch, all units within 6 will then get to do it as well. So Tau standing there and just being an impenetrable wall of pulse is not going to fly anymore. The way I think Tau are going to perform, in my personal opinion, I'm no expert, is that you'll probably play a very cow-yon game where you'll use shielding units and bait units to eat the charges for you. So rather than hide your drones around a building to eat mortal wounds, what you'll do instead is you'll have some drones up front to absorb the charge, whilst your fire warriors and battlesuits behind do the actual damage on Overwatch, the drones die, and then you blast them in the following shooting phase. Or, some people have been saying Farsight Enclaves are going to become really powerful because they have got buffs to hit and buffs to wound right up close and personal, so there is a theory going around that Enclaves would be the most powerful option.
Will make a change, wouldn't it?
It's definitely a huge change. There's also some things to note that the terrain overhaul also affects Overwatch. So some terrain can be classified as defensible. So if you have infantry within this defensible terrain, you can choose one of 2 abilities. If you choose to hold, then your Overwatch hits on 5s. So the unit you pick to Overwatch actually is much better at firing Overwatch, which is great if you've got like burst cannons or assault cannons or auto cannons, or you really need that critical las cannon team to actually hit the dreadnought before it hits you in the face. Or every other unit can what we call set to defend, which means that they give up their Overwatch, but they get +1 to hit in the following fight phase. When you do this is not confirmed. So it might be that you have to do this on your turn, meaning you have to tactically plan which units are going to give up their Overwatch to get a better combat phase, and which ones you think I might want to Overwatch with them, so you set them to hold steady. So I think what they're trying to do is take away the rote automatic stuff from 9th edition. So you must include these units. You must take this. You must fire Overwatch. You have to do X, Y, and Z. And they're trying to make it more tactical. And they've also done this with multi-assaults. This was sneaked in with the Sisters of Battle faction focus. So if you declare a multi-assault in 9th edition, you have to roll high enough to hit every unit in that multi-charge. Rather than, I declare to charge these 4 units. Okay, you rolled high enough to reach one of them, so you're in. That's how 8th edition works, and then they'll pile into the others. Now, if you don't roll high enough to hit them all, you don't connect, which means that the devastating multi-assaults that obviously were very bad for Overwatch are now gone, or have been changed slightly, so Overwatch has become more tactical, and when you declare your charge, has become a bit more tactical, possibly, as well. I think that's what they've tried to do with 9th edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
there is.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, and I think 9th edition is going to take a long time, especially because a lot of armies are going to have exceptions to some of these rules, like for the greater good, for example, how the Drukhari interact with the new detachment and command point system. There's a lot still to be confirmed, and I think until 9th edition drops in July, it will be very difficult to get a concrete view of who's going to be King, Queen, Superbug, whichever, of the new edition. One other change they've made in that Sisters article is to look out, sir. So you may remember in 8th edition that if a character is stood at the back of the board, you can't shoot them. That's changed. So nowadays, to benefit from the you can't see me, you have to be stood next to, as in within 3 inches of, a vehicle, a monster, or a unit with 3 models in it. Meaning that characters stood on their own, just out in the open, are actually now snipeable, even if there's units in the way. They have to stand near to units, which some of them will be doing anyway, to pass on their benefits, or to be untargetable, which is a small change in the grand scheme, but also is a bit more intuitive of, wait, so your Cryptek is stood with no one within like 10 feet of them, and I can't snipe them. Why? Because there's a unit in the way. But that unit's 20 feet, it's 20 miles in front. Doesn't matter, they're the closest unit, you have to shoot them. But they're out in the open. Now you can target them.
That's good at least.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a mix of making the game feel more intuitive and also making the game feel more tactical. Because I think that's what they want to do. I don't know how well they'll succeed, but that seems to be the going theory.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get a lot more rules in the coming few days as well, along with the additional faction focuses and that as well. Yeah,
so the faction focus today was on the orcs, and they were talking about like orcs are going to really benefit from the fact that vehicles can shoot in combat, which they will, because half the vehicles want to be in combat but come with ridiculous guns. And Death Dreads in particular come with a lot of guns and melee weapons, and Gorkanauts and Morkanauts and Stompers, and so on and so forth. And about how now that you don't need to sink huge amounts of points into giant mobs of grots to make up your CP, you can now actually take proper elite armies again. So it's just lots of little things that they're sort of pointing out as we go along about 9th edition.
Also, I apologise if my voice goes at some point, because I was recording earlier today and my voice was fucked.
Yeah, I was doing a lesson earlier, so I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm going to try and play it safe because I was making a lesson earlier. But in more positive news, or like more universally positive news, I consider the 9th changes to be positive. Some may disagree. Even as a Tau player, I'm saying that, by the way. But in universally good news, Forge World is back.
Hooray! And they've already sold out of Titans.
Yeah, it's quite funny. It's like, GW are making everything so expensive, we can't access the hobby. First thing that happens when Forge World opens, the Titans go.
All of them.
It's just like, right, okay, so which is it? You don't like expensive things or you like expensive things? I understand that this is a very select group of people. This is not reflective of the standard hobbyist who doesn't have the same amount of money. I know that. It's just quite funny.
To be honest, I think the only very large thing that's still available is the Tau Manta.
And even I don't want one of those.
Why not?
Because how the hell am I going to carry it anywhere?
Well, it's only 12.5 kilos in weight. 12.5 kilos of solid resin.
That's like 5 or 6 decent sized bags of potatoes, just for context.
Yeah, just throw it on the table and crush your opponent's army with it. Crunch.
Yes, no.
I win.
Especially because it was like 2,000 points. Yeah, no thank you. But yes, Forge World is back, which is good if you are a 30k person or a Titans person, or actually does Forge World really do anything else besides upgrade sprues Titans in 30k these days?
Blood Bowl special characters.
Oh yeah, that's true. You forget sometimes just how much GW's taken off of Forge World.
And Necromunda hired guns as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was Forge World. Oops. But that's a good segue, because that leads on to the new Necromunda roadmap.
Yes, which is going to be... it's basically the release schedule for the upcoming House of Blades, House of... What else are we called?
House of Iron for Orlok and House of Artifice for Delac.
Vansar, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, Vansar. Yeah, I always get those two mixed up.
How do you get those two mixed up?
Because I know they're completely different in lore, but Delac is the first name that comes to my mind every time. Even though I know it's wrong. I'm sorry.
But yeah, suffice to say, House of Blades is scheduled to be released in Q3, which will be anytime between July and September.
Yeah, so essentially they just bumped all of Necromunda back by a quarter because most of this quarter has been spent on lockdown.
Yeah.
And they also showed off a few bits and bobs from House of Blades, sort of more abilities for this bow, the wild bow. Actually, wait. This article had, rules in it earlier. I swear it did.
I think someone may have made a whoopsie as well.
It had rules in it earlier.
Someone made a whoopsie. Like, nope, we weren't meant to show those yet.
Oops.
And it wouldn't surprise me. It's happened before, let's be honest.
Yep. GW and keeping things under wraps doesn't always end well.
No.
I think the worst one, though, was Preview 1, where... Obviously, I know everything got leaked, but there was an email went round just as the preview started saying, "The lion revealed!" Yes, really. Even though the lion wasn't due to be revealed for another hour and a half. Ah, dear.
I mean, it's not the first time, the email newsletter things have been a bit, in regards to releasing things saying things like the limited edition for Saturnine out now, about 2 hours after it already sold out.
I think that's a special case that just Saturnine went so fast.
I know, it happened with the other Siege of Terror limited editions as well.
I know, but yeah.
You think they would have learned by now? It's like, don't bother mentioning it because it will be sold by the time the email goes out.
Or send the email out the night before to make it sell out even faster.
Yeah, that too. Speaking of which, we should get Fury of Magnus in August, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Will you be going for the limited edition of that since it is Magnus?
Oh, excuse me. I don't know. Because August, I'm probably going to be either so busy with lesson planning that I'll have a lie-in that Saturday morning, or whatever morning it happens to be, or I'll forget that it's a thing until it's already gone, and you'll just tell me, "Oh, did you get it?" And I'll have forgotten it even existed. Because I'll just...
We'll find out when it goes on sale in New Zealand first.
Yeah, true.
To be honest, that's the only reason I remembered about Sons of the Selnar, because basically, literally 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was, someone pinged me in the Discord server saying, "Hey, this has just been released in a New Zealand store," because it wasn't mentioned on Games Workshop's site at all. It wasn't mentioned on Warhammer Community at all. So I just groggily on my phone was like, fuck, I need to get up early to pre-order this. So the first thing I did before setting my alarm, I sent a message to Disharmonia saying, hey, Disharmonia, limited edition comes out in about 8 hours. Have fun. Yeah,
Ouch.
so she wasn't too happy about being woken up for that, but hey.
Speaking of things that are probably going to sell out really, really quickly, let's have a quick chat about the Lumineth, because you can't stop me, and certainly because there's no guest, I need to fill time. So I'm going to talk about the Lumineth now.
So it's basically going to be the elf version of that Sisters of Battle box set, let's be honest.
I mean, that's what it is. So the Lumineth box set that was revealed back in Preview 2, it goes on sale, or pre-order on Saturday, or tomorrow, actually, as we're recording this. It's actually already gone by now, probably. And I'm umming and ahhing about whether I want to buy it, because, I do. I do want to buy it, because I want the battle tome as quickly as possible, and thank you, Palpatine. I do want it, but the problem is I'm up early and on the trains very early Saturday morning, and so I'm probably not going to get a chance for like an hour after release to actually buy it. And I'm very concerned that it's just going to fly, because it's the first big release since lockdown has been lifted. And it's pointy elves, and it's techless, and it's gorgeous miniatures.
Hang on, is Teclis in the box set?
No, but it's Teclis' army, so...
Right, I was going to say... I know, but Eltharion's in it, though, isn't he?
He is. The Light of Eltharion is in... or it is, I should say. But the other concern I have is that today they put an article about Beyond the Box, and they've given absolutely no indication of when the Lumineth are due to get their remaining units, or when these units are going to be available individually.
I mean, in fairness, Games Workshop themselves probably don't know it yet at this point either.
That's probably very true. But, I mean, how long did it take for Sisters to get their entire army roster after their box set dropped? It was like 2 or 3 months.
About 2 months, yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it could be that the Lumineth drop tomorrow, and if you don't get them, right, wait till August or September now, because July is basically block booked by 9th edition, because I suspect Lumineth will be this week, Psychic Awakening 9 will be next week, is my guess, and that will be releasing, therefore, on the weekend that we record episode 100. So it'll be on pre-order on the midweek, and then available when we record episode 100 will be Psychic Awakening 9, which is the 5th of July. And so 9th edition, then they'll have a 2-week pre-order for Indomitus and 9th edition. And then that's July just gone. And then they've got to get the Necron Codex out there somewhere. And Sons of Behemoth are not exactly missing. You've got to get the Mega Gargants out somewhere. That's also, true. We now have to start worrying about Necromunda again. I just don't know when I'm going to get the rest of them.
It's going to be a very, very busy time, yes.
It is. And
Which basically means, you kind of have no choice. You have to order it tomorrow then, don't you?
I have to try. But for mixed system players like me, it is very much... oh no, my wallet's had 3 months off and now it's going to suffer, because I want to get the Lumineth, I want to get the Sons of Behemoth book. I don't really want a Mega Gargant right away, but they're attainable in every army in the game, so yes, I do want one eventually.
Do you know what? Right, you know that meme with the drunk guy, with the goofy mask saying, it's goofy time, and he's got the belt in his hand? I'm imagining that being you, but with your wallet saying, it's Lumineth time. It's like, no!
Ah, dear. To be fair, the Lumineth were revealed back at LVO, for context, which is January. It was January we saw the Light of Eltharion, the Spearmen, and the Cavalry. We have known about this box. I know lockdown doesn't help, and it was supposed to come out in April if some of the leaks from the Battle Tome have seemed of anything to go by. But it's been now basically 6 months, 5 to 6 months, since we got to see these miniatures, and... they've actually done a really good job of rebuilding the hype for the Lumineth, which I worry had been overshadowed by 9th and Mega Gargants and everything else. Because, well, lore-wise, they're basically the High Elves crossed with the Craftworld Eldari.
With some cows mixed in.
No, this as in I'm talking about the pre-cow era.
Oh, right, sorry.
So the lore came out for them on... yesterday even. So, in the beginning, they were the most stable creations of Teclis, yada yada, lovely, enhanced by abilities, great artisans, great warriors, yada yada yada. spread across Hish. Mastery of self is paramount. Discover ether quartz. Start making use of ether quartz. And basically they just drive their pride and perfectionism further and further and further, and they start competing with each other, creating grander spires, greater spells, and Tyrion and Teclis took their eye off the ball, and they went basically full civil war on each other, allowing the demons of Slaanesh into Hish and the wars of the Lumineth, and I quote, paving the way for the truly apocalyptic age of chaos. They made the elves cause the age of chaos again. Why do you do this to them? Why do you always do this? Why is it always the elves' fault? It's always
so. I think we can probably narrow this down to it's Teclis's fault again.
I mean, this one is actually Teclis' creation's fault because Teclis and Tyrion both collectively took their eye off the ball.
Yeah, so it's technically Teclis' fault for, not keeping an eye on things. I mean, let's be honest, if you've got a baby and you're giving it a bath and you leave it alone and it drowns in the bath, you're not going to blame the baby for drowning, are you?
No, especially if you've had to further that analogy with Teclis, you've had a baby and you lost it because for one reason or another, and then you have another one and you decide to take your eye off it again because that Teclis created the Idoneth and then tried to cure the Idoneth, broke them so badly they ran off, and she tried to hide at the bottom of the sea to get away from Teclis. That's how badly he treated the Idoneth. Then the Lumineth come along and are perfect in all ways because their souls actually work, except no, they're all prideful asshats because remember, they're from Ulthuan. And so they just go...
Not to mention, Slaanesh's belly.
Also that, and so they go on and basically create the second sundering that leads to the bloody Age of Chaos. Why? And also, then Teclis comes back and creates the Elementary, and the tenets of these temples are based around humility, self-sacrifice. And it's like, are these even elves anymore? I know, obviously, the elven characteristics to be prideful, hubristic asshats is normal. But yeah, it's just like, oh god, great. The elves are responsible again.
I mean, in fairness, it could be worse. They could be responsible for the creation of a chaos god like someone else did.
True.
It's like, hey, we just accidentally gave birth to Slaanesh's little brother, Laneshti or something, I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't quite go full of the Eldari, but but it's still quite funny that the elven story begins with Aenarion battering off a vast horde of demons, and over and over and over and over and over again, the descendants of the line of Aenarion have done nothing but cause demons. Like Malekith, Morathi, Tyrion with the Widowmaker, Teclis repeatedly. It's like Aenarion and demons just seem to go together. Whether they're working together by accident or in polar opposition to one another, it's just how it goes.
Yeah, it's
It's a thing. But one thing that's interesting is the fact that the Lumineth roster is everything we've seen. So there's no more for the Lumineth than what we've already seen. So there's still scope for a Tyrion army, which could be a lot more based on the dragons of Caledor, which could be very interesting. Because this Lumineth army is the citizen soldiers plus elf hammers plus battle cattle. That's it. So very much this is...
Do you reckon they'll actually go full-blown dragon with a Tyrion army, considering that dragons tend to be more of the Stormcast thing at this point in time?
Malerion is a dragon.
Yes, half-dragon.
Yeah, Malerion is fused with a dragon, and also the cities of Sigmar still have black dragons. I think Malerion's faction may still have dragons, or dragon kin of some sort, because obviously the cold ones, Drake spawn, and the dragons now belong to cities with the Order Serpentis. But I would not be surprised if Malerion is very draconic and there's almost like dragonkin type elves in his army. Tyrion, I think, might stay away from the dragons, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the elite units, like the White Lions of Krace, the Sword Masters of Hoeth, even maybe the dragon princes themselves, not dragons, but dragon princes, an elite, heavy, chunky cav, go and live in Tyrion's army, if Tyrion is to get an army, of course.
Yeah.
And it's also
the Roy will be blind anyway, so...
Yeah, and the last interesting thing to note, this is a random thing, and you may consider this spoilers, but the book's out in 4 days from the episode going live, so I think this is fine. Lumineth are the First Order army that cannot ally with Stormcast, it seems.
Oh.
So up to now, Stormcast have been able to ally with every single Order army, or they're in the Cities of Sigmar Battletome. But for the first time, it appears the Lumineth can't, and their only ally is the Ideneth. That makes no sense. In my personal opinion. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about Lumineth now.
So they can't ally with things like, say, the Sylvaneth or anything like that?
No. Huh. Now, I have a reason for why they can't ally with most things, and it's because, well, Teclis and Sigmar had a bit of a falling out. Because Sigmar...
Didn't everyone have a falling out with Sigmar? It's like, hey, let's build this new pantheon to fight the Chaos Gods. Oh, no, don't do that. And I was like, no, come, no, oh, you're beating the shit out of each other again, god damn it.
Well, Nagash got annoyed at Sigmar for nicking souls to make the Stormcast.
Understandable, considering he's the god of death.
Yeah, and all souls were promised to him. Alarielle and Sigmar don't seem to have had a major falling out, particularly, but Alarielle and the Sylvaneth were very reticent to aid the Stormcast because Alarielle was a seed for most of that. But in the events of... what was it called? What was the name? Forbidden Power. That was it. When the Penumbral Engines and the Storm Vaults were revealed, the Penumbral Engines were made by Teclis to be sort of fountains of knowledge, because Realm of Light, knowledge, yada yada. And Sigmar told Grungni to mess with them to turn them into stealth cloaking devices, because dwarves and elves will never get along, apparently. So I don't think Teclis will have been best pleased with Sigmar for screwing with his inventions to hide his dirty secrets.
So, in short, it's all Sigmar's fault.
In many cases, yes, it is all Sigmar's fault. I just find it weird that the Lumineth and the Ideneth can ally, because they shouldn't. Because the Ideneth don't want anything to do with Teclis. They literally ran off from Teclis because of what he did to them. And they're not... Some of them are okay with Tyrion, but some of them are not okay with Tyrion. Like in Court of the Blind King being Tyrion, the Ideneth Prince main character sort of scoffs at Tyrion. Just sort of like... Pah. Sort of that sort of is... Particularly amongst the Achelians, the attitude to the old gods is either no, screw off, or... Pah. It seems to just be their attitude.
Yeah. Yeah. So
sorry, I could talk elves all day.
I'm just saying things like, when some people say that AOS is basically just now fantasy 40Kified as opposed to Tolkienite, they're not necessarily wrong.
No, AOS's setting is certainly less grimdark, more high fantasy. But let's be fair here. 40K's nicked more from AOS than AOS has nicked from 40K. In terms of mechanics, like everything that 40K...
Mechanics, yes, but I'm talking more from a lore perspective.
Oh, from a lore perspective, yeah, absolutely. Certainly you could see the parallels between the Stormcast Eternals and the Primaris Marines. You could see that.
I'm sorry, Oculus, by the way, for calling them Ground Marines in your presence. I know you got very upset with me the other day for saying that.
But yeah, the Elves and the Eldar have always been tied together, and I'm not surprised to see parallels between the two. Though, that on the nose? Really?
I mean, again, Games Workshop have not exactly had a, good track record when it comes to being subtle. I mean, all you got to do is look at, the Liber Chaotica, like, yes, it's told from the perspective of a Sigmarite priest, it's set in Warhammer Fantasy. It's like, I have seen the greatest servant of Tzeentch, a demon called Magnus who has 1,000 sons. It was like, subtle!
Yeah, GW doesn't do subtle. But I think actually it's interesting because obviously, well, not obviously, but AOS is becoming more about a grand clash of gods now. Obviously there's the cities and the Stormcast and the elves and the dwarves and the undead and the orcs, and they all go to war all the time for one reason or another. But it's not about them. Whereas 40k, it's about the wars of the soldiers of the Imperium bravely, if you believe in their ideology, holding out against the dying of the light to keep their Imperium alive for a dead corpse on a toilet seat. Or whatever. Whereas...
But Gilliman's off the toilet seat.
You know what I meant. But it's about the people. The wars of 40k are about the people, are about the empires. They're about real, tangible things. AOS's wars are about the gods.
Basically it's like...
it's Greek.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like Greek mythology in a way, yeah.
And there's a lot of it of... I don't know how much they're drawing from Greek myth in terms of the storylines, because I don't know my Greek myths well enough.
Let's be honest, in regards to Greek mythology, about 75% of everything happens because Zeus couldn't keep it in his pants.
That is true, and GW have certainly not done that. Don't you start. But
we'll turn Sigmar into Zeus. He goes around just banging everyone. It's like, I have spawned a bunch of bastards who are now superheroes. Here is, this is Hercules. He's not Hercules, honest.
But either way, it certainly feels like the wars and the politics are about the gods. It's the collapse of the Pantheon of Order, the bitter rivalry between Sigmar and Nagash, the manipulation of Malerion from the shadows, the blind sort of ambition of Marathi, Archaon's desire to become a god, and essentially being so far removed from the realm of mortals that he goes... His road trips are to go and chat with Slanesh rather than to go and do anything tangible. He goes to go and find Slanesh in Wrath of the Everchosen. And he only comes back because some Mortark gets it all up himself that he thinks he can go and take the Varen Spire, to which Archaon comes back and absolutely butt stomps him. It feels like a war of gods with their peons, especially with the Stormcast, who die, get resurrected, die, get resurrected, die, get resurrected, going more and more insane every single time. It feels like a game of gods.
Yeah.
Which I'm not against, by the way, as you might have noticed.
Oh, no.
But yeah, if you prefer your grimdark, on the ground, the grim reality of everyday life, I understand why fantasy is preferable. And I understand why 40k is more, not realistic, but more connectable? Not relatable. You see where I'm going with this?
Pretty much, yeah.
Good. I didn't want to sound too insane. So, I believe you've probably read something because you were in the middle of something and you couldn't finish it last episode.
Well, I started a Regent show. I haven't actually finished it yet. About maybe a third of the way through. I've been very busy with other things, but it's quite interesting so far because we've gotten to a point like, as I mentioned last time, it starts off with, shortly after Gilliman arrived, on Terra to beat the shit out of, demons and meet with the Emperor, blah, blah, blah. And basically, he ends up having a big award ceremony, as it were, to basically honour the heroes of the siege, basically. Like, this custodian did great deeds in this battle, so I'm going to honour him by giving him a wreath to put around his armour. This Sister of Silence did a great job, and I'm giving her a sword. This sword, it used to belong to... We don't know, because Sister of Silence goes, don't tell me. It's like, why the fuck don't you want him to tell you? Just God's sake. But I'm just going to guess it belonged to Janisha Kroll or something. It makes sense if it did, let's be honest.
I mean, if a Sister of Silence can interrupt someone, that is a seriously important hand gesture.
Yeah, it's just giving the finger. Let's be honest. I mean, let's be honest, you can just stop anyone with a hand gesture, just hold it up.
True, but stopping a Primarch in full flow as a mere mortal with the mere raise of a hand is pretty impressive.
In fairness, Gilliman probably isn't used to that anyway, so he's probably just like, why are you doing that? What does this mean? That boy needs therapy. Sorry. I wonder if anyone else remembers that song as well. But anyway. So, the Somnus Citadel on Luna is in the process of, I say being rebuilt, being restored is more accurate, because there are people still living there, like the descendants of the servants that used to work there, obviously. Mm-hmm. Well, in the interim, there are a couple of chaos... a chaos cult running around on Terra called the Splintered, which is like a whole bunch of different cells running around, blah, blah, blah. the custodians are basically tasked with eliminating these cells because they've actually infiltrated like members of the ecclesiarchy and stuff like that as well. Now, to aid in this, a company of Imperial fists have returned to Terra, led by Tor Garridan. Pre-Primaris, I should say.
Okay.
That being said, you know how Tor Garridan's model, he has white hair? He's described as being a brunette in this book. Maybe it got bleached when he underwent the Rubicon. I don't know. But when Tor Garridan shows up, he basically gets all up in this custodian's face, saying like, "How the fuck could you allow this shit to happen on Terra?" Essentially, and which is
population of quadrillions.
Yeah, but pretty much that. But Tor Garridan's like, this shit should have never been allowed to happen in the first place. Which, in fairness, he does have a point, considering the custodians are meant to be fucking looking after the palace and shit. Stuff on Terra shouldn't have gone that bad. But what can you do? So they're going around to try to find this other splinter cell of the Splintered. And it's like, where's the location? Ha ha ha. So they go down to this, this cathedral. It's like, okay, we've got intelligence saying that they're hiding there. They go there. The cathedral's been burnt to the ground. It's like, are you sure they're meant to be here? Yes. They investigate the ruins. So Garridan picks up a bolter round. It's like, I thought you said there were no space marines on Terra. It's like, well, apparently I was wrong. The custodian says quite snarkily. Now,
right.
Given the spoilers that have already been leaked in regards to this book, the fact that, another chapter gets involved, I'm pretty sure that's basically just Chekhov's gun at this point.
Right, okay.
But that's all I've really got to at this point in time.
Yeah, and I know from, I think it was the Indomitus Crusade White Dwarf article, that Guilliman went on a bit of a purge throughout Terra to get the Indomitus Crusade off the ground. I vaguely remember that. Yeah, this is... The later events I described were basically, it was shortly after Guilliman left, and he basically took, much of the Navy with him. Most of the Imperial Fists are with him at this point, leaving only Tor Garridan's company to return to Terra along with the Phalanx, because the Phalanx at this point is pretty fucked, because it's still recovering from, the Battle of the Phalanx and the 13th Black Crusade. Does it still have Legion of the Damned on it?
It wasn't stated, but it was pointed out that, a good chunk of the ship was missing.
Oh, Dawn would not be happy.
It's like it was missing and leaking gas into the void as it limped slowly back to Terra.
Yeah, and it makes sense to leave Garridon's company behind because the third company are actually officially known as the Sentinels of Terra. That's their sort of title.
But one thing that is quite interesting is they do mention about the Primaris program, and it's like, how anyone managed to keep this secret when, there's people on Terra who are, their entire job is exposing secrets, and they missed this, and pretty much all the High Lords were pissing themselves about it. Understandably, it's like, oh, we got about, 100,000 Space Marines that are, Super Space Marines that are locked away on Mars. You can understand why the High Lords would be a bit upset.
Yeah.
But at this point, most of the High Lords have been replaced with new ones. One of them being the Lord General Militant of the Astra Militarum, who really doesn't give a fuck. It's like, I don't want to do this. I'm not a fucking politician. I'm a general. I don't want to be here. This is bullshit.
To which Guilliman is like, that's exactly why, because I need someone to cut through the politics and the BS to get stuff done.
However, he's not very helpful in regards to helping the politician character in the book, and I keep forgetting her bloody name. It'll come to me at some point, though. So, essentially, she's going to try and, convince him to help her by not asking the general, but by asking, the Lord Commander of the Imperial Navy instead, to try to embarrass the general into helping her.
That goes about as well as you expect, I suspect.
We'll find out later in the book. But it's kind of thing like, well, if you won't help me, then I'll make sure you're so fucking embarrassed you have no choice but to help me. It's not necessarily a bad idea in the political side of things, let's be honest.
I suppose not.
But yeah, that's all I've really gotten to this far in the book so far, but we all know that the bolters, the bolter shells that you discovered, they're belonging to the Minotaurs. I think that's obvious at this point, given the fact that at one point in this book, allegedly, I haven't confirmed it yet, but allegedly there's a showdown between, Trajan Valoris and fucking Asterion Moloch. Which, I'll be honest, if that actually does happen, I am looking forward to that shit, because I want to see that fight.
And I mean, Moloch is about custodian size, isn't he?
Moloch's a big boy. Moloch versus Valoris, that would be a fucking fight and a half.
Indeed. And we know the Minotaurs, obviously, were the attack dogs of the High Lords, as it were.
Not to mention the fact that Moloch, it has been killed reportedly at least 7 times, and he's still fucking around. It's like, I lived, bitch!
Yeah. So, wait, you died? I got better.
Pretty much, yeah. He's like that weasel from Ice Age. It's like, I tragically died, but I lived!
Indeed.
God, that movie was shit, wasn't it?
They made like 4 of them, didn't they?
There's more than that now, because there was the original. There was the first one was actually good. The second one, which was the third one with the dinosaur. The fourth, there's one that went into space. The one with the pirates. The one had Peter Dinklage as a pirate for some reason.
Good grief! I thought it was just 3 of the dinosaur ones. Bloody hell!
And speaking of shitty movies, how about The Last of Us 2?
Haven't played it, haven't seen anything to do with it, don't really need to talk about it, and there will be people watching this who are avoiding spoilers like the plague.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil anything from the story, but let's just say, critic score 95, user score 3.4.
Now, bear in mind, obviously, that game did get leaked and has been... it got dogpiled way before launch, so it was always bound for trouble.
Probably because most of the leaks were actually confirmed to be true.
Perhaps. And obviously I didn't see most of them. I never played The Last of Us 1 because I never had a PS4 as it happened. Yeah. But...
Yes, I can't play Last of Us 2 anyway because my PS4 bricked after I tried installing the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo. I downloaded it, installed it, it bricked my PlayStation.
Yeah, my old PS3 died while I was playing Space Marine. Not even the multiplayer, the campaign. I was just playing it through for like the 4th time. I was at, where was I? Not Gorguts. Grimskull was dead. And it was during the demonic bit. And I died, and the PC died mid-barrel roll. I was mid-raid through a combat roll just because it was faster than running. And it just completely froze and I got the yellow light of death.
Oh no.
So yeah, I ended up getting my old neighbour's old PS3. My brother has that now. I haven't had a console on me in about 5 years.
Now, I just want to point out in regards to these modern consoles that my Sega Saturn from 1995 is still fully functional. It was a first generation model as well, so it was one of the original Western releases of the Saturn, and it still bloody works.
Yeah, I've got a GBA SP.
The only thing that doesn't work in it is the internal clock, and that's only because you need to replace the actual watch battery on the fucking circuit board with it, which takes about 5 minutes. But aside from that, it works perfectly, and that's from like 25 years ago.
Yeah, I've got a GBA SP that I got in 2003. Because when I got my first console, we got Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on it. And that, I think it was 2003. And while I haven't played it in a while, and I'd probably need to leave it to charge, I guarantee it will still work.
Oh yeah, more than likely. I mean, to be honest, cartridge-based consoles will last longer anyway because there's less moving parts. So they'll just last longer in general.
Unless your cartridge is Pokemon Gold and Silver, because they actually do die because they keep real-time clocks and it kills them.
Yeah.
Or something like that, but
the internal battery dies, yeah. That being said, though, I'm so good about my copy of Pokemon Blue, because the battery in that fight recently died, which is a shame, because I actually had a Mew on it.
Ouch.
Yes, a Mew.
Fair dues. Right, since we've got a lot of time, why don't we spend a while on questions? Because episode 100, I get the feeling we're not going to get any time for questions.
That seems fair enough. Have you got the questions lined up and ready?
I do. Just let me make sure I've got them locked in. Oh, we've got a good number, actually. Have the Blood Angels ever tried to cure other Marines of the Black Rage by recreating conditions that cured Mephiston? Well, the conditions that cured Mephiston didn't actually cure him, was he died.
Yeah, and the only other Blood Angel who comes close is Lamates, and he does suffer from it. It's just very, very hard to keep under control. It's like, no, I'm not gonna fall. No,
Yeah,
basically.
He sort of fights it down constantly, and Asterath constantly has to keep an eye on him just in case. So he's kept in stasis between battles and yada, yada, yada. Basically, Mephiston is unique. Mephiston is ridiculously OP and unique.
It's because he's Dracula.
Okay. If I remember the lore correctly, when someone ascends to become a demon prince, their soul is replaced by, and I quote, warp stuff. That is correct, yes?
Their soul becomes bound to the Chaos God that ascend them, yes.
Yes, the question that goes on to say, did the same thing happen with traitor Primarchs, and if so, what happened to their souls? Were they destroyed, or are they possessed by their patron god or gods? Well, you answered that already.
They're bound to them, yeah.
Okay,
The only thing we don't really know for certain is in regards to how undivided demon princes are.
Yeah,
that's the weird thing, because undivided demon princes are a whole weird kettle of fish in general, because, like, in the Demon's Codex it says, like, Be'lakor is the only demon prince of Chaos Undivided, and everyone's like, yeah, but Lorgar and Perturabo.
Yes, the Demon Primarchs would like a word with you, and I believe, this is obviously a Sigmar thing, I can't confirm this for 40k, but when you take a demon prince, you have to mark it. At least in AOS. I can't speak for 30k off the top of my head. Or 40k, I should say.
Speaking of demons, though, those Ruinstorm demons will make an awesome base for a demon prince conversion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Ruinstorm demons are great, and obviously you've got endless scope to create new ones, use third-party demons to make them. As long as you get the right, as long as you have WYSIWYG weapons in the right base, GW or Forge World doesn't care. Which is good. Okay.
Though you do get some weird Games Workshop stores that refuse to allow anything from Forge World to be brought into the store to be played with, which is weird. You'd think that all stores would be have the same universal rule, like, this is a Games Workshop official product, it's just from the Forge World subsidiary.
Yes.
Because, like, back in, the mid to late 90s, not all models Games Workshop sold were Citadel. Half of them were Citadel and half were Marauder.
Yeah, and obviously in the 2000s, the early, not the 2010s, the noughties, as it were, there were a lot of miniatures or rules that didn't have miniatures. Like a Gutsmech, Old Zogwar, Vect, sort of.
Literally half of everything in second edition.
Yeah, a lot of rules existed where there were no miniatures, and that led to third parties and kit bashes and conversions, which GW clamped down on around the 7th edition period by making sure everything had a miniature, which is great, but then ticking out everything that they didn't, and it really hurt the Drukari.
Speaking of kit bashes and that, does anyone else remember, that weird thing that the Citadel Journal used to sell? Like, the Citadel Journal, for those who weren't aware, was it was a Games Workshop publication that was basically about house rules and kit bashing ideas. Nothing in it was canon, but it was just like, hey, if you want to use these in your games, here are some, unofficial, official rules, as it were. Yeah. And there was like, they could actually, they had like actual lists for conversion kits, and actually, if you want to buy the bundle, just quote this bundle when calling up mail order. And there was one for an Ephrael Stern Dreadnought.
What?
And in fairness, the parts of that were actually pretty cool, because like you used to use standard Space Marine Dreadnought, but you used the blast shield from the old second edition Immolator, which looked like a Dreadnought sarcophagus, but had the fleur de lis on it. So it's like, that's perfect for a Sisters of Battle Dreadnought in theory.
Yes.
There's some. I think that also had, you could get the Halfling armies for Warhammer Fantasy, like, if you want your Goat Riders or the Goose Riders and stuff like that. It was some weird shit.
Very weird by the sounds of it. Like, this is all before my time, so I can't really pass comment. But it is a shame.
That was back when you had Fat Bloke as the editor for the Citadel Journal before he ended up becoming the editor for White Dwarf. And that was before he ended up getting a burger named after him in Bugton's Bar. I mean, let's be honest, that's kind of an honour, you know. How much of a mark must you have made on the hobby as a whole when you get a burger named after you? You get a bird called the Fat Bloke. What bigger honour is there than that?
I mean, I could probably think of several, but...
to be honest, I think he actually works doing that bolt action. Is it bolt action? Yeah, that World War II tabletop game?
Yes, that's bolt action.
Yeah, I think he went on to do that, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously...
It was like him and Thomas Prinen. I probably pronounced his name wrong. Swedish dude.
Comments
the guy who created Mordheim.
Oh. Comments, you know what to do. Go find out. Right. What is your opinion on the Warhammer Conquest magazines, assuming that they're not exclusive to places we don't live?
That's the one. Those are the ones that come with the push-fit miniatures, aren't they?
Well, the commenter is coming from Germany, because Warhammer Heroes was the ones in Japan.
Yeah, and then because there was the it was being done by Hatchet Publishing. Like each issue would come with like a different model sprue or a paint or a brush or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it came out like it started coming out years and years ago, and initially it was just England or just Britain rather, and then it expanded to. It was weird because it ended up being like it expanded to what was it? Expanded to Australia and then South Africa, and that was basically it. You know, those 3 countries.
Yeah,
which is a bit weird.
This comment is coming from Germany. I think they did do that sort of weekly magazine thing in 8th edition where you got a Death Guard, and you basically, if you bought all the issues, you ended up with like a huge Death Guard and Ultramarines army.
Yeah, it's still ongoing, I think. Yeah, because they're also selling terrain pieces and that as well now.
Yeah, because it was like $1.99 for the first issue and like $6.99 for the rest or something.
And they're doing an AOS version of that as well now.
That will have Stormcast and Nighthaunt in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember this now, vaguely. I've forgotten its name, but yeah, these magazines do ring a bell.
I mean, I'll be honest, I think it's a good introductory way of getting someone into Warhammer. Like, if they don't really know, what Warhammer is, and getting a magazine for like $1.99 with a model on it, it's not a bad way of getting someone into it. It's like, if you're interested, here, just get that for $1.99, see what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why having different styles of novels like Warhammer Crime, Warhammer Horror, Warhammer Adventures, which actually I think there's 2 Warhammer Adventures books been nominated for an award this week, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I forget which ones. One of the 40k ones and one of the AOS ones I think was nominated for an award this week. Though I'd have to go and clarify. I think it was on the author's Twitter. So I may misremember, but I think that's the case.
Okay. Oh, if you're interested, the AOS version is called Mortal Realms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the first one was like, you got the Thanos Knight Incantor for like £5.
Yeah. I find it funny that issue 7 has like a 1-star rating because it comes with a tub of Reichland Flesh Shade and Stormhost Silver. And that's it. So it's 1 star. 1 star. Here's your Flesh Shade and metallic paint. Have fun, peasant.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you buy Reichel Fleshshade and Stormhost Silver, that's like £5 all on its own.
In fairness, issue 11, that came with 2 Mausoleum Crypts.
That's a lot. Is it? No, it's not. It's like 2 pieces. It's not.
I mean, it was this.
The Sigmite Mausoleum kit. Oh, right. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting mixed up between like a piece of gravestone and the Garden of Moor. That's not bad, I suppose.
For $7.99, that's not bad.
Yeah, because like, that on its own will probably cost 15, 20 quid in normal G-dubs.
Yeah.
But you don't really get them. Well, you do get them on their own, but not like quite like that. But yeah, it's not bad, I guess.
And you got like issue 14, which comes with like 2 Dreadblade Harrows.
Aish. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Nighthaunt, but yeah, that's awful. Right.
Yeah, it's $7.99. It's not that bad.
Right. question that basically is for you, because it's an old thing. Are there any Rogue Trader era models you would like to see re-released in a more updated form, as in with more detail and correct proportions, but still looking basically like they did back then? For example, the Mark I Terminator armor, or the original Bloodletters with the curved spine and such.
I do want to point out that Mark I Terminator, canonically, it's not actually called Mark I Terminator armor, because we had a discussion about this, trying to find out what it's actually called, and it turns out the actual name in lore is Vulcan pattern. Because in lore, it was actually created by Vulcan.
Fair enough.
Alternatively, it's also been known as Nocturne pattern, but I think Vulcan pattern suits it better.
Agreed. So, with regards to the question...
Yeah, I'd like to see the old Chaos Dreadnought. You know, the one that's got like, it looks like it's got the skull face and the scorpion stinger tail.
Oh, yeah.
Its legs and the crab claw. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, isn't that from Space Crusade? Because I think I've got one.
No, the Space Crusade one was the one that looked like the Ed 209.
Yeah, I've got the Ed 209 Dreadnought.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm surprised they didn't release something like the Ed 209 Dreadnought for Horus Heresy.
Probably because copyright infringement.
When has that ever stopped Games Workshop before? Let's be bloody honest. I mean, one of the AOS Orc Shamans is literally Gul'dan from Warcraft.
I take your point. I take your point.
Yeah, so I'm surprised they didn't release something like that for Horus Heresy, like a pre-Contempt of Class Dreadnought or something. Like, this was the very first pattern of Dreadnought ever created by humanity. I think it would be appropriate, let's be bloody honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like maybe like there's ancient sarcophagi that still contain the first Thunder Warriors to fall in battle because the Emperor decided that Thunder Warriors still needed dreadnoughts.
Thunder Warriors, ho!
Yeah,
do.
Yeah. If we get Thunder Warrior miniatures back ever, that will be the day.
Only if Games Workshop ever decide to release a Unification Wars era tabletop game.
Yeah.
Which, if they do, it's not going to be till long after Horus Heresy is dead and buried.
Yeah, I think actually it would be more suited to being, rather than a full-blown game system like 30k is, to being more like, maybe not Necromunda, but more like that sort of, or a very unique standalone specialist game, rather than playing like 30k or 40k does. Because the Thunder Warriors are obviously like, far more...
Like Underworlds or something else, maybe. I don't know.
Underworlds is even less scale, even less miniatures than Necromunda, and it's all hex-based. But I feel like the Techno-Barbarians are so weird and wonky that it would be kind of interesting to have them all just be unique little things, maybe like Warcry.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think of, like, what factions do you even do? You know, aside from the Emperor's Thunder Warriors and the Custodians, what do you have beyond just random Techno-Barbarians? What do you do?
You do have some of the legions as well, like the Salamanders we know take part in the Unification Wars.
Yeah, but I imagine if you're going to have Thunder Warriors around as well, it'll be... Considering that Space Marines didn't actually get revealed, quote-unquote, publicly, until, like, near enough all the Thunder Warriors were wiped out.
Point taken.
Because it was after the because according to the Valdor novel, it was after the Bounty of Mount Ararat, and then you had the remaining Thunder Warriors lay siege to the Imperial Palace was being under construction, and then Valdor goes, "All right," clicks his fingers, "Here's the fucking First Legion, bitches."
Cue the Dark Angels.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
And the surviving Thunder Warriors were like, "Where the fuck did you get more Thunder Warriors from?" It's like, they're not Thunder Warriors, they're better. They don't go on fucking rampages.
Yeah. So yeah, fair enough. I suppose you've probably got room for like psychic cults and different religious groups, maybe some roving monsters. I don't know whether Terra had the ability to sustain animal life on it at the time. It probably didn't. I don't know. I think it would be a small scale game like Necromunda or Warcry rather than being on the scale that 30k is. Because really, you want to talk about like, how many different things can you release? You've got 20 flavours of space, you've got 18 flavours of Space Marine, Dark Mechanicum, and Demon conversions.
Yeah, but again, for Unification Wars, If Thunderbolt is going to be around, you can't really have the Space Marine Legions around.
I don't disagree. It's just a theory. Right. Speaking of Primarchs, actually, while we're here, if the Chaos Gods had not managed to corrupt the Primarchs, or had failed to scatter them, if you still believe that the Chaos Gods were responsible for that.
Spoilers.
What was their... What do you think their backup plan was? If they'd failed to corrupt Lorgar, etc.?
Fuck it, let's create more Warp Storms. That always works.
I mean...
Let's create another Age of Strife.
I mean... Oh, the Age of Strife comes about because of the birth of Slaanesh, but yes, I see your point.
No, it came about before Slaanesh was born.
No, the building up of Warp Storms was due to the turmoil caused by Slaanesh's gestation.
Yes. It's caused by her gestation, not her birth. Her birth ended the Age of Strife.
Yes, you are correct. Because it depends on sort of... I don't know. I feel like if the Primarchs hadn't been scattered, then they'd have got on just fine. That you'd have still... I think there'd have still been falling outs, and there may well have still been Primarch turning against Primarch and against the Emperor because of just sheer spite and rivalry with each other, even if they'd been brought up together, because sibling rivalry is a thing. I can attest to that. But if Chaos couldn't get their claws into them, then I suspect that they'd have probably tried to... I don't know. What? If you can't corrupt the Primarchs, then how do you even... Well, the Chaos Gods would survive because they're unkillable, but...
You'd go and try and corrupt the Sensei! Dun dun dun! That's no other kettlefish, that is.
Yeah, like, short of, like, trying to do what they did, to power up empires or other worlds or species to try and just make there be a threat. It's... I can't see a way by which the Chaos Gods failing to corrupt the Primarchs, at least anything other than an Imperial cakewalk. So...
Yeah.
But to be fair, like, some of the Primarchs, even if you don't get Lorgar, there were more than a few Primarchs who were corrupted. Like, Fulgrim wasn't corrupted by Chaos deliberately. He was corrupted like an idiot because he picked up a sword. And Horus was corrupted because he got shanked. So...
And because Erebus was like, hey, you should totally join Chaos. Hey, what does Hasta Sejanus think? Yes, it's a good idea. But even though that's not Hasta Sejanus, that's Erebus with a mask.
Yeah, but I think there were still ways for the Primarchs to fall without the Chaos Gods directly intervening to corrupt them, like with Ingathel or Erebus's agents.
Not to mention whatever happened to number 2 and 11.
Also, 2 and 11 are a thing, yes. Right, just lost my place there. Let me just... Don't crash, please don't crash. Please don't crash. Okay, so this is something following on from our discussion about, Balderbort's idea of getting more Primarchs back and having to get Primarch tier units. So, if every race were to get a Primarch equivalent unit to make them able to compete with the fact that there are more Primarchs, what do you even give them?
Well, then is you just give them a big scary monster. Like,
yeah.
maybe you give them a beefed up version of the Swarm Lord.
Heck, you even make a battlefield Norn Queen.
Yeah, that's it.
That could be fun.
That's the point. They could always just release a plastic version of the Dominatrix.
Yeah, the Dominatrix is the one that this comment actually makes reference to. Is that the Dominatrix would probably be what they'd give to the Tyranids.
I mean, Orcs should just give them Gazgul Fracker.
Who they've just beefed up and is still and he could beat Gilliman. So yeah, Gazgul's not far off in terms of power. He can beat Gilliman in a fight.
Just maybe up his stats maybe a tiny bit more, but yeah, that's who you give to the Orcs, Gazgul. That's how you just
have the Silent King.
Yeah, that's how you just give him a big shiny battle suit.
Again, for the third time.
I mean, what else are you meant to give them?
I know. It is one of those things
unless you give him, like, I don't know, super magically powered up Farsight, who's now got, somehow got feathery angel wings coming out of his armor like a fucking Gundam and has, like, super sparkle sword attack or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I agree. Like, just taking one of the commanders and boosting them up to Primarch tier is never going to fly. But it's just like, the Tau, the Riptide in 6th, the Storm Surge in 7th, how much more bigger and stompy do you want to go? And also, they fight with guns at 1,000,000 miles distance, so they're not even really in the same class. Like, they're ranged beat stick, whereas all the Primarchs and Primarch tiers are buff units that are also beat sticks and heroes.
All you gotta do is have the somehow cybernetically resurrected version of Almvar, who's got, like, 6 tachyon arrows attached to his chair. There you go.
Or they just resurrect Puretide.
That's it.
I mean, they've saved his brain, so it's not like they can't do it. And in Farsight Empire of Lies, through the means of Shavastos, Puretide does just talk to Farsight.
Fair enough.
Sort of.
Imperial Guard, you just...
don't, because the Imperium already has Primarchs.
Yeah. Sisters of Battle, you can just, maybe buff up Celestine a little bit, but that's about it. I mean, she did canonically, shank Abaddon, so...
Agreed.
So she can arguably be buffed up. Who else? What other armies are left?
Eldar.
Make the Avatar of Cain fucking relevant, for one.
It's been so jobbed out, though, that people wouldn't buy it because it's been beaten by everyone and their mother.
I know. Someone actually made a really interesting comment the other day regarding the Avatar of Cain, how it's basically War from Star Trek The Next Generation. It's meant to be this great and powerful warrior, but everyone beats the shit out of it to show how badass they are.
Yeah, because, like, obviously Fulgrim beat one, Lorgar beat one,
Marnius Calgar beat one, Dante beat one,
some Beasts of Nurgle beat one.
A Keeper of Secrets managed to possess one, a Gene Stealer managed to infect one.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah, the Avatar of Cain is not powerful enough to really make it. Even like the greater Avatar that Forge World has.
It's the Dolph Ziggler of the 40k world. Yeah, people are meant to buy as a top tier contender, but it always jobs out to everyone.
I don't even think it's a Dolph Ziggler. It's more of a flipping, almost a Shinsuke Nakamura comes in, like all the hype in the world behind it, and then gets just far enough to hang, and then gets beaten by everybody.
Except the Avatar doesn't get the luxury of delivering the Peen Shassa. Back at that time where he kept punching AJ Styles in the dick. Because that was funny, apparently. Well, it was kind of funny, but yeah.
Right, where are we? I have heard it said that an unknown power interfered, and that had it not, Fulgrim's original destination was Trigoris.
Yeah, I think that was hinted at in Scars.
I
think.
So, okay, now that we've got that just in our heads, what would have happened, therefore, if Khan and Fulgrim had swapped places, and Khan had been Camosian and Fulgrim Trigorian?
Well, Fulgrim would have developed a fancy mustache.
But obviously, because Fulgrim... I've forgotten Fulgrim's bloody recruitment and origin story. I've forgotten his bloody origin story now. Hang on. Because obviously Khan landed with the Steppes and united the tribes against... What's he called?
Fulgrim, he landed in a hive city, I believe, where basically resources were so scarce that the population couldn't even afford to make things like art. And, yeah.
Yeah, just...
It was something like that.
Yeah, so he landed in... he was taken in by factory workers, became an executive and modified the machinery because apparently he was a forge smith, which we know. So his fortress factory became really profitable, and he managed to basically take a dying industrial world and make it prosperous all on his own. And then he became ruler of Kamos over about 30, 40 years.
We also know that, canonically, he has been married multiple times.
That's from his novel, I take it?
It is, yeah. And he outlived every single one of his partners.
Well, yes, he's a Primarch.
Yeah. It's kind of sad, actually, because he actually said, he felt that he loved them at first, but then he forced himself not to love them because he couldn't bear to keep outliving them.
Yeah, it's almost like, do you really want to live forever type thing.
And bear in mind, most of these all these marriages were described as being political marriages, so...
Feudalism. But, obviously...
Something, Primarch consummating the marriage, there we go. So, someone was going to mention it anyway, so he might as well get out
it'd be interesting then to take what was essentially a barbarian warlord and put him in a factory world.
To be honest, I don't think much would really change, considering, a Primarch is a Primarch. So...
True, but Khan was not an artisan or a craftsman in the same way that Fulgrim was. So what Fulgrim did...
At the same time, though, you could argue, how much of it was nature, how much of it was nurture. How much of Fulgrim's... how much of an artisan would Fulgrim have been if he hadn't landed in a fucking factory?
Take your point. And how good of a general would Khan have been had he not landed in the midst of a tribal warfare?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Would Leman Russ still be a barbarian if he wasn't raised by, a fucking wolf?
Actually, I remember doing a video on the nature or nurture, and I know we talked about it on the podcast before, way back, 3 years ago. We talked about the nature of the Primarchs, and is their personality and traits nature or nurture? And it's still unclear how much of who they are comes from where they were from. Magnus obviously was a prodigious psyker either way, but his thirst for knowledge was probably boosted by Prospero. So...
Yeah, and let's be honest, Lorgar, he ended up becoming a religious fanatic on a world full of religious fanatics.
Yeah. Korax became a anti-establishment rebel on a world where he was basically taken in by slaves. Gilliman became a diplomat because he was raised by a literal emperor. Well, consul, same difference.
A politician.
Politician, that's the word I'm looking for, thank you. Yeah.
He was a politician who was raised by a politician. Who would have thought?
That's good.
Now imagine if Leon Russ landed on Macragge, but still had his Fenrisian personality. It's my son, Rabute Russ, you're going to go there and be diplomatic, aren't you? Now I'm going to smash their fucking head in.
I mean, Gilliman's first command was go smash heads in, and he did it so well that everyone just stopped bothering him.
So me smash good. So, cargo space, car no go space, cargo road. I do love that joke.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear. In the spirit of jokes, in a tag team drunken bar fight, who wins? Remleiz and Narina or Thunder and Dr. White? I mean, surely it should be White and Arsenic Typhoon. But who's counting?
Yeah, I think people associate Thunder and White more this day and age because they keep gate crashing each other's fucking episodes.
Yeah, I think it's just
so they're like a fucking married couple anyway.
Yeah, it's just more to keep the intergender thing going. That was, but that yeah, I somehow have a funny feeling that from what I know of your back in particular, that would not end well for you.
No, but at the same time, I'm a hell of a lot bigger than them as well.
True. It was quite funny.
I mean, I'm 6'2" for crying out loud. I'm not exactly a small person.
Well, people found it absolutely hilarious. Where I was in the Warp Time radio server, we were just chatting, and we were talking about the Warhammer merch, and I mentioned that I'm 5'11", and people were just like, "Hell, it's Tactica Imperialis over here." So they read.
Yes, I've noticed your nickname on Discord is still Tactica Imperialis.
On Warp Time and Warp Time only, yeah, because apparently me being 5'11" makes me some fucking chunky monster. Because I used to play rugby for a bit, and I'm 5'11". I'm not that big.
I'm just going to sit here and laugh at you in my 6'2".
Exactly. Ay. Do. Okay.
I do want to say before I threw my back out, I used to be built kind of like Rhino. Not like a Rhino, like Rhino the wrestler.
Okay, so reasonably large, could absolutely spear you in half. Good to know.
Go.
Yes. Right.
Speaking of which, I do want to point out that, Paul Heyman screaming out gore is a hell of a lot more, entertaining than hearing Michael Cole shouting spear. It's like, it doesn't work, Michael. Shut up. Shut up, Maggle.
Dear. Right. Here's one. Can Tyranids be corrupted by chaos? I would assume so, though maybe the Shadow and the Warp interferes. They're essentially all psychers, are they not? So if they're far enough from the Hive Fleet, are they not at risk of possession and so on?
I just want to point out that Chaos Gene Stealer cults are a thing. They're mentioned in the Gene Stealer cult codex, so...
Yeah, I'm reading the question. I know the answer to this, but I'm still going to read the question. So follow-up question then, that's a bit more out there. Could a Chaos God subvert the hive mind synaptic link to link the Tyranids to it?
I mean, it's chaos. It can pretty much do anything. It can do whatever the plot demands. There was one of the William King Space Wolf novels where I think there was actually a hive fleet that was corrupted by Nurgle. If I recall correctly.
That rings a bell, but I wouldn't want to say for sure.
Or at the very least, the Hive Fleet was infected with some Nurgle disease or something, and, the Rune Priests are like, there's the taint of Nurgle, or something like that. But in, Swedish. The taint of Nurgle in Swedish! There you go. But, I know it's a terrible joke. I don't give a fuck. I'm tired.
Right.
I've been up since 4 a.m.
Do you want me to let you get some food and go to bed?
No, I'm good for a moment.
Fair enough. Okay. So, here's a Necrons question, based apparently on one of your old Man-at-Arms videos. So, if the Necrons can reliably field weaponry that shunts the target into another reality, not the warp, why haven't they managed to tactically eliminate the persons of interest of other races, or, just put demons into a reality where the warp doesn't exist to try and kill it?
Plot armor.
Yes. That's pretty much the answer.
I mean, the Necrons also have a weapon that can literally snuff out stars with the click of your fingers. And they don't just do it, go like, these humans are causing us problems. There you go, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, they sort of...
They also have time travel technology.
Yeah, the Celestial Orrery, which is what we're referring to, the Star Snuffer Outer, is used as basically galactic gardening. So, okay, it's too crowded. Put a sun out. Or send that one supernova. Just, you need to clear out some clutter.
Not to mention, there was that in the novella Devourer, Tumor gets invaded by the Nids, they breach the inner sanctum, the crypt just goes, there, they're all sent back 65 million years into the past.
Necrons! So ridiculously OP that they have to be jobbed out as comedy acts because they're never allowed to win because they're so goddamn terrifying.
It's like, part of me was thinking, you've just sent a Hive Fleet 65 million years into the past. You probably just condemned several thousand, if not millions, of races to extinction.
And also, by the way, that's 5 million years before the War in Heaven and the collapse of the rise of the Eldari. You could literally manage to wipe out the Necron tier doing that.
Whoops.
Big whoops.
So, Cryptek, we got to get you back to the past. Like, do. You go like, Cryptek Brown or something.
Orican the Diviner on a quest to save himself from destruction 60 million years ago by destroying the Tyranids that were sent back by another Chronomancer because the Chronomancers are idiots.
Great Sarek! As opposed to Great Scott.
Yeah. Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Okay, we need to have a Back to the Time Necron crossover now. Just needs to be done.
I was told a bit of detail about the War in the Museum book.
The short story, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently that book ends with a Benny Hill chase sequence between Trazyn and Orican via the medium of Mind Shackle Scarabs. Like, apparently, like they sort of data each other, and Trajan chases Orican through different people's mind shackle scarabs in the museum or something. It's like a Benny Hill chase sequence, but with mind shackle scarabs.
All we know in regards to Orican and Trajan now is that they're basically, they're sundering each other. Like, it's not like I like you or anything, baka. That's basically their relationship now. They claim to hate each other, but they just really want to fuck.
We will see what happens in the Infinite and the Divine, or whatever it's called.
Yes, we will find out if they finally fuck.
They're Necrons, Remleiz.
They can simulate the fucking. That's what USB ports are for. I don't know.
I have no desk and I must head it. Oh, jeez. I'm so glad this is... I say I'm glad this is on your channel, but that means episode 100 is on mine, so it doesn't really matter if this one gets demonetized, because I'm the one who's screwed anyway. Okay. Where are we for time? Okay, we're still alright. Does Guilliman still dislike Calgar? Because he kind of blanked him in Gathering Storm and stuff.
I don't really know, because, about 150 years has passed since then.
Well, as I...
Oh, no, actually not that much. It hasn't been that long, no, sorry.
It is, it's 200 between Gathering Storm and Plague War.
I was talking in regards to Dark Imperium. It wasn't that long then.
Yeah, because I believe in Plague War, Calgar doesn't get to be a Tetrarch, or whatever they were called.
No, I was Dark Imperium, and because Gilliman was like, yeah, you kind of fucked up, so no, and then Calgar's like, oh, fuck this shit then, basically. But then they seem to be fine by the next book.
Yeah, because in Plague War, Gilliman does his stuff and Mortarion runs off, but Calgar gets stuck in a sort of grinding campaign, so he's not exactly helping his case, is he?
No.
Though at least... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think it's going to be one of those plot threads that they're just going to completely forget existed. Because I've seen a worrying trend, they'll drop, some writers will drop a thread, like this is what we're going to hint at towards happening in the next book, but we're never going to follow up on it, or completely rewrite it, or whatever. Because there was one thing like that in... you've read the Magnus Primarch novel, haven't you?
I haven't read any of the Primarch novels in any time that I can remember them.
Right, okay, well, in the Magnus one, at the end, it's got the entity Shaitan, and Magnus bounds it into the Book of Magnus. But in the audio drama Morningstar, which takes place after that, he's not bound to the book, he's bound to the spaceship, which is somehow on Prospero, even though it really shouldn't be, and then he rebounds it to the Book of Magnus, and it's like, hang on, what?
Yeah. Now, I give the Calgar Gilliman thread more hope because it was written by Guy Haley, and Guy Haley is the chief writer of Dawn of Fire. Now, bear in mind, though, Dawn of Fire takes place during the Indomitus Crusade, and Dark Imperium is kind of the end of it. So, there is a chance that they'll... sorry, go on.
Speaking of which, we still haven't had any confirmation as to why the Dark Imperium series was removed.
Actually, no, we haven't. Because unless they're going to... I would say they're going to republish them, but that would be at the end of Dawn of Fire. That's going to be years off.
Or at least a year off.
Yeah.
Because if it's anything like the Beast Arises series, they'll probably have a different author for each book.
True, but I feel like I feel like they might want to go more on the Heresies scale, where they're going to have lots of, rather than just being 8 books that tell the Indomitus Crusade. I think they want to go wide, and so I think there'll be more like 20 or 30 books in the series.
I don't think it'll be that much. I think they'll probably do what they did with the Beast Arises and go with about 12.
I thought Beast Arises was 8.
No, it's 12.
Or maybe it was about to have book 8 that the actual War of the Beast ended. Or something.
It was... I think it was book 11 the War of the Beast ended, because book 12 was purely about the beheading.
Ah, right, yes. Sorry, I the War of the Beast is not long ago, and I've read that much since that I can never keep up with it. And I've got Siege of Terror on the brain, which is 8 books. That's what's probably throwing me off. Siege of Terror is 8 books, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 8 books, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Good, I'm not going insane. Yeah, I don't know. Just because they seem to be because they made reference to the heresy and to the Beast Arises with Dawn of Fire. I just feel like because the Indomitus Crusade is 200 years of history rather than the sort of, decade of the Beast Arises and the no more than 20 years of the Horus Heresy, which they got 50 books out of.
It wasn't even 20 years for the Horus Heresy. The War of the Beast was longer.
Exactly. So I feel like they've got enough time to fill, and they've got, so many different battle fleets, plus Guilliman himself, plus the Primaris, plus Call, plus Terra, plus the legions, the Unnumbered Sons, and the chapters that didn't get Primaris. So what happens when they met the Primaris? You get to flesh out the reunions with the Dark Angels, flesh out the reunion with the Blood Angels a bit more because Dante was unconscious the entire time, and so on and so forth. They've got enough scope that they could do at least 20 books without trying.
It depends on how big these books are going to be, because from a size standpoint, the War of the Beast books weren't that big. They're only about 200 pages, and they're smaller size ones as well. Like, they're about the size of... they were actually smaller than... right, you know the Mephiston novels you have?
Yeah.
Do you have the hardback or the paperback version?
I have the hardback of City of Light.
Right, okay. So each War of the Beast book is actually shorter. Like, by about a centimetre. So, they're quite small books. So if the Tome of Fire books are about the size of, say, Empire of Lies, in regards to a book size that big, you could probably get away with about 12 books.
Yeah, which is obviously not obviously, but the Avenging Sun book looks pretty chunky. The first one.
Yeah, so they're probably end up being like Farsight size then.
Yeah, I think certainly north of 250, maybe south of 400, but certainly in the 300 to 500 ballpark, depending on how much limited they're giving.
I'd say 300 pages is about a fair size estimate.
Yeah, probably. I think they've got room to do dozens if they wanted to, but I think for the sake of continuity, you might be right and they'll keep it to no more than a dozen or 2 dozen. Yeah, that's why that sort of is why I give the Giller and Calgar thread some hope, because Guy Haley's writing this first novel and it's got Gilliman in it. They might actually have him getting his reports about the Ultramarines. So it'll be like, what? So he might be able to keep that thread going because it's his thread.
Maybe.
Though I know your opinions of Guy Haley are rather mixed.
I mean, he does a far better job of writing Blood Angels than he does Ultramarines.
He does.
Because I'll be honest, I found the Dark Imperium books kind of lackluster. I mean, there was some good stuff in it, like, the whole storyline in Plague War, like, the end bit with Gilliman properly going off on a run at Frater Matthew, that was really good. But some of it just, like, all the stuff with the Nova Marines in that book was just so fucking boring, I felt. Like,
yeah.
you could have cut all that out and nothing would have changed plot-wise, I feel.
Possibly. And admittedly, I've only read really of his. I've only really read the Shadow Sword of Beyblade books and Devastation of Baal. So I've probably got the best of his stuff on my bookshelf.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think Dante is one of the best 40k books out there. I still think it's an amazing book. Like, his Blood Angel stuff is really good, even if there are the odd, inaccuracy here and there. Like at the time he said, like, do we really know where Sanguinius is buried? Is he really buried on Baal? To which James Swaller replied, yes, I wrote that in my novels.
Yes. Do you even read?
Do you even read, bro?
Yeah, because what was it? And one of the old authors, when they were on the show, were talking about like the sort of inability to sort of cross-reference each other. Like, was it ADB who was sort of talking about some of them really struggle, or Josh Reynolds was talking about the sort of difficulty they have cross-referencing each other's work, particularly with the heresy?
I think it might have actually been Josh Reynolds, because I think we ended up going into the conversation in regards to Ian St. Martin writing Fabius Baal and a Lucius novel.
Yeah, and I think there was something about Space Wolves as well. And he had just written the Lucas the Trickster novel around the same time.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was that, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously, actually, he's, speaking of Josh Reynolds, he's now finished with Black Library. Manflayer, the last bio novel, is his last Black Library publication.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
I'm 89% sure he is. He's still writing, but he's writing freelance now. I don't think he's contracted to Black Library anymore.
I think he was freelance in the first place, wasn't he?
Okay, sorry. He's not working with Black Library anymore. He's now writing his own stuff.
Fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Full credit. And we know he's good, so yeah, go support.
I still find it funny that he says that he absolutely hates writing Fabius Bile.
Yeah,
Which is amazing considering, you know, how good the Bile novels actually are. Because I actually respond to him saying, like, you know, you write him as if you actually love him, you know, and he responds saying it's because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
It's like, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh, I wrote the Lucas the Trickster novel on a dare.
Yeah.
That was quite... I know it's been a while since we've had an author on. The last one was obviously David Geimer, back a good 20 to 30 episodes ago now. We had David Geimer on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'd be nice to speak to some of the Black Library people again, but, well, everyone's busy, so we understand that. And we're busy enough that we don't really get time to make the bookings.
Yeah. We should get Darius Hinks on the show at some point.
Oh, I'd love to. Now that I've read the Mephiston novels, I do really want to speak to Hinks. I think I'd really like to pick his brains a bit. And Phil Kelly, obviously, because he wrote the Orc Codex of 4th edition, my first book ever, and he wrote the Farsight novels. So I really, really, really want to pick his brain about Tau. I really want to pick his brain. But that's just me, I think.
Yeah.
Where are we for timings? 1:56. We're time for one more, do you think?
One more.
Okay. So, which of these is more possible / likely? The G-Stealer cult's belief in the star gods somehow infecting the shadow and the warp, similar to the greater good god? Or will it be the other way around with Genestealer cults corrupting saints on a shrine world? Genestealer cults do that all the time.
Yeah.
Genestealer cults are very good at flipping worlds to the worship of the four-armed emperor. It's kind of their gimmick. It's convert the populace through genetic manipulation, hypnosis.
Infiltration.
Yeah, infiltration, manipulation, hypnosis, and oratory. It's their gimmick. Though, the idea of a god, or the Tyranids as a god, being created as a minor chaos god entity, could be interesting.
Well, wasn't it hinted at in Devastation Above? Because didn't Mephiston turn around and say, like, yeah, the Shadow and the Warp, it's basically transcending into a warp entity. It's basically becoming a god of hunger.
I'd have to double check that bit. And I know exactly which bit you're referring to. I just have to double check the wording.
Because there was like a big meeting with all the librarians, and it was like, are you saying that the hive mind is a god? And Mephiston's like, well, what else will you fucking call it?
Yeah, certainly he does talk about the hive mind's sentience and almost emotion. I don't know if he outright states it that way, but I have to double check the wording. I know exactly what you're referring to, but I can't remember exactly how it's worded. And to be fair, we're not even sure, like, the god of the greater good may not even be real. Like, it could have all been a delusion of the fourth sphere. We don't know.
But then again, it did, like, literally tear open the warp and picked up the fleet and pushed it out the warp.
In their own minds it did. This assumes that it wasn't just the warp being the warp, or them being carried off on the tides, or being shoved out by another Chaos God, who's because we know Tzeentch and Khorne are playing games with the Tau. Khorne via Farsight, particularly. So we know the Chaos Gods have got an interest in keeping an eye on the Tau and corrupting them. So Khorne and Tzeentch doing it, or Khorne or Tzeentch doing it, is not outside the realms of possibility either, especially because Tzeentch is a shapeshifter.
True.
So, yes, I think the God of the Greater Good is a thing, but we have to caveat it.
I do like the idea of Space Vishnu.
I do.
Because that's basically what the Greater Good God is. It's Space Vishnu.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept. In my head, I have to subtly asterisk it of, is it actually a thing, or was it just a delusion or another chaos god or minor entity in disguise?
But are any of the gods real, or are they delusions made by the warp made manifest?
Good point. I'm walking into a philosophical debate I cannot win if I start that argument.
Yes, it's a bit late on the Friday night for that, so I think we shall end that there.
Yes, just as a caveat, I don't think there's much point asking questions this week. Not because we don't want to answer them, but purely because it's episode 100. and we've got like 20 different people, and we're not really... I don't think there's going to be any structure to it.
14... Yeah, about 20... Yeah, literally 20 people, yeah.
Is that including the duplicates? Like, 2 people, 1 account?
Oh, no. No, sorry. Be 21 people, I feel, in that case, then.
Yeah, so... you can ask your questions if you want to, but don't put the hope in of getting them answered next episode, because I am genuinely scared of what's going to happen next week. Well, in 2 weeks, you know what I mean?
Yes. But do we want to reveal any of the guests, or should we keep it all a surprise?
Let's just say, then, if I have a look at the guest list, the faces you're expecting, but not necessarily only the faces you're expecting.
How cryptic. So, thank you very much to everyone who joined in for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And I apologise for the quality of my voice constantly going and coughing, but like raw throat is a pain in the ass, as I'm sure you're aware. Mm-hmm. So, until next time, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
And this has been a now very nervous Tactica Imperialis.
Sure you mean Tactica Imperialis.
Oh, get off.
And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.